damn it. I don't want to connect to AT&T. Hey! And it's recording, so.
Okay. All right.
I just have no idea what it's recording.
Do you wanna like go on a rant about technology failing and modernity and things like that?
No, I don't.
You're not feeling the Luddite?
I always feel like a Luddite. But no, it doesn't do any good. I mean,
Fair. I've never heard of a Luddite success story.
No. It really never, it never works out in the end.
Yeah.
Usually everyone dies.
Yeah. That sounds about right. Yeah, they never do it, peaceably. It's usually bombs, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like Amish and Mennonites, I guess.
That's not success.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a point well taken. No, but I mean, like
any Amish watching, I apologize. Oh, you're not.
Well, but think about it, like from the standpoint that, basically the only thing that the Amish and Mennonite religions have done since the 1800s is like slowly fade away.
Yeah.
So,
I guess you winnowed out the disbelievers. Maybe is how they're gonna frame that.
Right. I think. Well, and on the plus side for them, at least they seem to be sort of happy as they fade away.
Yeah,
they're happy to do it. So
we like clinging to bygone eras and things like that. So
I get frustrated with technology sometimes, but I really like showers every day.
Yeah. I mean, they probably got
at
like
least
a bucket maybe.
That's not a shower. I like showers.
You can like flick it at your face.
No,
yeah,
no good.
I'm no Amish man. I can't come up with a viable solution for showers. So
maybe one of them probably has like a good idea. Like they might have like a bowl full of fire with a pot of water.
So you want your showers hot? You're saying?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, you got to qualify with that.
I do,
because I had some alternatives.
Who likes a cold shower though?
People in the 1800s. I don't know. I guess that was their option if they were going to shower, probably.
Or lukewarm bath.
Yeah, lukewarm bath.
In a clawfoot bathtub. I don't think a shower was really a thing back then.
No, they had.
There was a lot of sharing bathwater.
Yes, but I'm almost positive that I saw at least one patent for like a.
The last time you were going through
18th century patents.
18th century patents.
Excuse me, 800s. But no, I think I saw something where it's like they had some sort of
like
system rigged up. Basically, I think it was a bucket with holes in it. They just held it over their head.
See, that's what I was talking about. Like you build a fire and then you have a bucket above it and then a hose that you can kind of like gravity. Like a gravity shower or whatever. Okay.
So you're
why the fuck are we talking?
Well, obviously, because we're planning on...
Because my phone is not allowing me to control, so if the framing is off...
I thought we were starting a community in the woods, but that's fine, too.
Hey, if we can get a shower in the woods, I'm down with that, but no.
RV, maybe? I don't know.
What's that?
RV?
An RV?
Yeah.
Oh, fucking I hate campers.
I hate you.
I fucking hate campers.
Is there a person that does not hate campers?
People that own campers.
Well, yeah, but I mean, is like, I'm happy to be in this camper. This is full satisfaction of my life. Yeah. I feel like it's always a compromise.
Well,
you're gonna put wheels on a house. It's gonna be a compromise. So.
That's true. Well, I don't hate campers because they're a compromise. It's like I don't know. When I go camping, I kind of like the fact that I'm just like all I have is a tent and some shit. Like I mean, I still have the white man's disease a little bit because last time we went camping a couple of weeks ago, I thought we were gonna get out of it, with just like the bare essentials or whatever. And even then, we still ended up filling up the entire trunk of the car, and most of the back seat.
That sounds about right.
And shit like that. And that's just to spend the night, you know? Like,
yeah. This wasn't
I thought we were doing so goddamn good, but apparently not.
Well, if anything, you can do worse with a camper, so... I mean,
yeah, that's true. But the thing about a camper, I guess, the plus thing to a camper is that you can just leave it packed.
That's true.
You don't have to load up all your shit.
I mean, I suppose theoretically you could just live in that camper, and and that could be your house.
You really could.
So.
But then you'd have to live in a camper.
That's
like
true.
a fucking gypsy or some shit.
Any gypsies or Amish watching?
Yeah, speaking of... we're going to offend all of the downtrodden today. Speaking of that, of rejecting society, you got your passport ready?
Are we abandoning both like rats?
I'm thinking I'm getting the fuck off this shit.
I saw well, I guess I didn't see it.
Come
I saw
November,
it through someone
there's
else's
a
eyes.
50-50 chance that this house and everything in it is going on the market, and I'm going to Mexico. I'm becoming a fucking Mexican.
I will wait till it bottoms out the price, and I will put down money for it.
Okay.
No, I saw through I didn't see, like I said, I saw through someone else's eyes that there was someone selling me signs for no matter who wins the election. It says, fuck this blank name, getting out of going to Canada or something like that.
I'm going
They're
to
just
Mexico.
making a tiny, profit on.
I think we've
I'm going to Mexico.
Yeah, we've settled on Mexico. So
why Mexico?
I went to Mexico last year. Really fell in love with the place.
That's interesting. Interesting. I knew you went. Your attitudes upon returning did not lead me to believe that you fell in love with the place.
I will definitely not be living in an American resort.
That was it. That was it. Yeah.
But no, I could buy a little concrete villa.
All right.
In the middle of some hurricane-riddled.
It's hot though, right?
It wasn't that bad.
No.
I mean, it's like because you get,
Was it summer?
Yeah, it was.
I guess it was, wasn't it?
June.
Yeah.
It was the dead fucking middle of summer, and it was
interesting.
I mean, it was like it was 90 something degrees, but
I mean, everything I've ever seen about Mexico has always got that like hot land filter. On,
yeah,
like,
but if you're anywhere
TV.
near the coast, and we were in the Yucatan area, so
Sure.
I mean, there's like. It's sort of flat, so there's generally a nice cool breeze. I say sort of flat. It's a carpet laying on the ocean is what it is.
Okay.
In between the Atlantic and the Pacific.
Nice. I can see that.
So there's like a nice breeze, and the water, like if you're near the beach or whatever, it keeps it cool, and I really. I mean, I like swimming and stuff, and
All right. Well, point defended. Well done.
Canada's fucking cold, and
see, I like cold.
You have to like everywhere you go. There's all these people saying they're sorry, and
I mean, I have personally felt like most people owe me an apology anyway. So just if I could just do that
Canadians,
all the time.
So we've got another powerless group out of the way. Pretty soon.
Fantastic. So. Because obviously the elections is what you're referring to, I assume.
Yeah. By the way, in case you haven't noticed, this is Welcome to the Clickbait Podcast. This is going to be the Pointless Podcast Volume 2 or Volume 10, depending on how you look at it.
That's either accurate or
it depends
outrageous.
On
I don't know.
We don't really have anything in particular to talk about today, so we're just going to kind of talk about a lot of the current happenings.
Did you hear about like Mitt Romney talking about running independent to split the voter base against Donald Trump?
There's another guy too who was that asshole that was trying to put together the independent party Republican ticket? Bill Kristol. Bill Kristol.
Okay.
That fucking turd. Anyway, yeah.
What was that one? The black guy with the doctor. That's not
Ben
him, right?
Carson.
Oh, Ben Carson. Okay, BC. I was thinking, but yeah, not him. Not him.
Bill Crystal. It's Crystal with a K.
Okay. BK.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know. Let's speculate about his heritage or anything.
We've offended enough.
Right.
Probably,
well,
so.
and it doesn't matter. I mean, if assholes are assholes. There are
Fair.
There are assholes on both sides of the aisle, right, left, Democrat, Republican. That's for sure.
Accurate.
Twitter is proof of that, I think. But like,
I would say just general behavior of humanity is proof of that. Twitter is kind of an amplification of whatever is bad in humanity, anyway.
That's true, because it's one of those things that, like, I think a lot of people are taking what happens on Twitter really, really seriously lately.
Right.
And but if you think about the way that Twitter functions, right? So you have like masses of people that are shouting out into the void, as I like to say.
Right.
As I've said many times on this podcast, that's kind of like my analogy for Twitter.
Yeah, that's a sensible analogy.
And then those certain people sort of gravitate to certain trending topics or whatever, and so they kind of like move around the outside. And then it's like, you'll get, retweets and all that sort of shit, and you'll get like exposure for being the most outlandish, no matter what position that you're taking. So it's basically like you can take any sort of reasonable argument, and then Twitter basically just sort of plays a game of telephone with it. So by the end of the whole thing, it's like Hitler was right, or like
he was right about symbols being powerful.
He was right about symbols being powerful.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. So
what did
Hitler was right, guys?
Hitler was right wing, but
Oh, nice.
Bringing it back to the good old.
So basically, you're saying that Twitter is now what it's become of American politics, anyway, which is basically being the most outlandish.
Being basically sort of a shit show.
Yeah.
And not rewarding reasonable discussion.
Right. What's it? There's a saying something.
Or disincentivizing, I guess, is probably the better word for it. Disincentivizing reasonable conversation.
Right.
And especially considering the fact that, you get 140 characters or whatever, so... I mean, like, you can't...
Yeah, you can't have
by
definition
can't have a nuanced conversation on Twitter, and yet people turn to it over and over, and it blows my fucking mind.
That is actually kind of that's an interesting point, because, I mean, the general, like, thought process is that any bad idea, if given enough time and enough reasonable conversation, like, would always lose out. But in a system where bad ideas aren't given that time or the ability to have conversation about, they flourish, I guess. So that is kind of interesting. You've discovered the downfall of humanity, I think, Kevin.
On the plus side, no, that's the wrong way to frame that. I was going to say,
plus side, we're all going
one thing about Twitter is that people know who people like Sam Harris are.
Yeah.
For no good reason other than the fact that they say controversial things and,
right.
and make people mad.
I actually listened to that. I don't even remember whether it was I think it was a Common Sense episode between him and Dan Carlin, and it was interesting. I
felt like Dan Carlin was really nice to him.
Yeah, he was. I mean, it was I feel like he did question a lot of the things that he was saying.
I've kind of avoided this topic for a long time because, like, I don't know. It's because people keep on saying that Sam Harris is really smart. And so I've been looking for it, and I've like combed through a lot of his stuff, and I've listened to his podcasts, and I've listened to his speeches.
Podcast, but I've
listened to his
speeches,
and I've listened to he's been on
Here's
Rogan a lot. He's been on a lot of different. He's been on Dave Rubin's show a lot, and
well, let's qualify.
I just
that.
don't see any evidence for it because
a neuroscientist. The thing about like smartness is it's about fields of study and fields of knowledge. I mean, because you're a neuroscientist, that does not equal you have the. Like,
I guess I'll qualify that statement by the fact that the things that he points out that are actually correct are obvious.
Sure, I feel like that's where he goes.
That sort of to the nth degree, like he makes himself into like his own slippery slope,
right?
And like.
The thing is, like, so I've listened to obviously just that, and then like some other statements by him and stuff, and I feel like there is a like essential like kernel of truth in what he's saying, or there's a starting point that's good,
right?
But then there's just no stopping point. It just keeps going, and then at that point,
he's got the philosopher's disease, you know, basically where he takes. You know, he finds one interesting like aspect of a topic, and then he focuses on that and drills down to that to where he's like basically eliminated all other factors, like all other influences and all other sort of like dynamics from the problem, and boils it down to like this ridiculously simple, exaggerated. I
mean, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know, Sam Harris is the guy that got into an argument with Ben Affleck on TV. It's pretty famous, I guess.
Yeah,
where Ben Affleck was
another thing
basically punch his face.
I don't begrudge anybody for getting in a fight with Ben Affleck. Let me say that was actually the most respectable moment I've ever.
Not even Superman. Not even Superman. But so he takes he's been speaking a lot about Islamic culture and a lot of
Islam is inherently bad,
or that it has inherent things in it that allow for badness to exist.
Well, that's not technically like his argument is. I mean, he might pay lip service to the idea that Islam has bad aspects of it, and that it needs to, you know, like that. Those bad aspects of it, you know, cause, you know, violence or whatever,
right.
and all that sort of shit. But when he's pressed about it, when he's in a debate with someone,
then he reverts to the
his argument. While he pays lip service to the moderate point of view, it always devolves into Islam is inherently evil, is inherently bad.
Okay. And maybe I haven't seen him.
It's basically him and Richard Dawkins like arguing that Islam should be wiped off the face of the earth.
Well, him and oh man, that's a hard thing to defend. Honestly, I try to be open minded about the things that I hear, but that is.
I mean, never mind the like. If you really like, you can take two different tracks with that. You can say, okay, well, so we should kill 1.6 million people or billion people, or you can say that we try to eradicate the notion from the minds of 1.6 billion people.
Right, and that did to my understanding, that did seem to be most of his focus, was the idea that it was something that needed to be educated out of.
Right.
That by sheer facts that it would
that these savages
emerge
are incapable of their own independent thought within the body of Islam, and that's you know that's. Right. So, yeah, but I don't want to talk about it too much. I mean, you know, I'm not that great of a debater, so, you know, I couldn't win a debate with him. For sure.
He's got
and I'll also say one of the things that really bothers me about him is that there is no one on the face of the earth that recognizes the brilliance of Sam Harris more than Sam Harris.
I'll agree with that. What was it?
That's my thing. That's where I'm gonna leave it.
Fair,
if I can.
Yeah, I guess. If you'll let me. Maybe we should. So I guess spinning out of what our original topic was, if we had a topic.
Do we have a topic? We were talking about Trump.
Yeah. I mean,
are you going to Canada if he wins?
I don't know.
Or are you going to hang out? Are you gonna hang out? I don't know. Like, I guess if I hang out,
I have questions as to what a presidency of Trump would actually be like. To be quite honest,
will he be so ineffectual that he won't?
I'm wondering if everything is just going to be delegated to other people. But then I do see.
Will the bureaucracy continue in the same way that it?
But here's the thing: the bureaucracy as it is kind of faulty anyway, and so without a firm hand on that bureaucracy, and I mean we've not had a firm hand on that bureaucracy for a while anyway, but with one so loose as that, it does give me some concern. And two, like, I mean, I don't know that I want to be a part of a country that's represented by that, like, worldview, like, as the world sees us, is going to be led by Donald Trump. I mean, what the fuck is that? That's just...
Like, on philosophical grounds alone, it hurts.
Yeah, I mean, it hurts that it's gotten this far. I realize why it's gotten this far, because we've had a massively bland but brokenly bland system. Like, it's a system.
People have been really complacent, and to be honest with you, I mean, like, this is my, like, non-educated observation. A lot of people have made more nuanced arguments than this, and I've listened to them, but I got to be honest with you. I think Hillary is winning on the ambivalence vote, like on the apathy vote.
Sure,
like,
sure.
Because I mean,
so she's the safe ground. She is of them all. No matter what she said, like to garner the leftist support that she's tried to match. Sanders with.
It's
I think everyone knows that that's not the case.
If you think about it, like starting with Bill Clinton. It was sort of like that was when the Democratic Party sort of changed its sort of appearance or framing or whatever to appeal to sort of like the executive sort of intellectual moderate liberals, I guess, or
right.
Basically center left or whatever, that were fairly well off. And, because, I mean, that was a good bet at the time because the middle class was, it was growing because it was the beginning of the sort of like the internet era and people, like, the economy was basically booming throughout the 90s, the early 90s and into the late 90s. And Hillary is still very much of that camp, and she's winning among sort of the upper middle class, like Democrats that weren't affected very much, let's be honest, by the recession, and that still aren't feeling, the problem. So
I mean, really she is winning on those lines. She's winning on other lines as well, though. Yeah. I mean.
Black voters in the South. Which I don't know. She's, I guess, like her organization, like her foundation and everything, the Clinton Foundation. Has been doing
I had some questions about that. I wondered whether that was something that was coming into play because
I haven't done any research into it, so I don't.
Right. But and I guess we don't want to say like that. That's
there's been more.
It does seem like but it's the same thing with Kansas. We vote against our interests all the time, and not to say that Hillary is necessarily.
Yeah, but Bernie swept it all in this state, though. Yeah, because we've been hit. We've been hit really hard.
It's we vote against our interests, especially locally, and I think that carries. I guess it's always carried into the. I didn't see what the Republican stats were for this state. I guess was it much more divisive?
No, it was Cruz won by a really meager.
So it was pretty mixed who got voted.
Yeah, and voter turnout was normal.
Yeah. Okay. So because we definitely saw
on the Democratic side
a rise
has been very unusual. It's been unusually.
And so here's kind of I guess my thoughts on that is we're in a primary right now that is gaining much more attention from people who don't normally vote. And then at the same time, we're also seeing a little bit more of how the process actually works.
Yeah, a lot of people including myself, because I've never voted in a primary or anything like that before.
Me neither.
Before this time.
Me neither.
You know, so a lot of people are becoming interested, and this is their first experience learning about the fucking sausage making that is.
Exactly.
And that's why a lot of people are pissed about
right.
shit like
so
voting restrictions and caucusing restrictions. And
well, yeah, I mean, in Colorado, they just threw out voting altogether.
Yeah, and
as far as the Republican
Nevada,
primaries.
I think it was Nevada, had a snafu this last weekend, like where they sent their, like they had a bunch of all the delegates. For Bernie and Hillary were showing up to the, like, I guess the, like, some major caucus this weekend, and like they weren't allowed to count like 60 some of the of Bernie's delegates, and like 8 delegates of Hillary didn't get counted or whatever. It's like, I mean, like, okay, so just like, whether you want to look at that from like a conspiracy angle or anything like that, I think what that's really showing, the core of what that's really showing us, is that the system that we have is fucking ancient and it needs to be updated.
Well, and the thing is, it's not ancient. It's pretty recent as far as the two parties, as far as the presidential primaries.
Like the caucusing and the way that we have that all.
The way the representative, the representative.
Even if you want to take it all the way out to the idea of a representative democracy,
right?
First,
right. I mean, that's where
there's arguments
where
at
you
this
would go
point,
back to.
There's arguments at this point that I think are pretty compelling that a representative democracy doesn't make fucking sense at this point.
Right,
it
doesn't.
Can be, you know, where people can be. It can be set up so that people can vote directly on issues.
Yeah, I mean, it was well. First off, technology allows it for sure, right. And not to say that this is any. Well, actually, you know what? Sci-fi does tend to anticipate where we could go or where we are going,
right.
And that is something that I've seen before or read before, you know, where it's, I mean, we have the technology to do it.
I know. I can bank on my phone.
Exactly.
So why can't
you could weigh in on every fucking decision that ever comes across Congress or anything like that, no problem, and you could do it all by popular vote. I guess there's kind of two sides to that, because on the one side, with the representative democracy, especially one that is taken on the form of being separated from the people as much as ours seems to be at this point, separated from like the goals and the, you know, the drives and what matters to the people, you've got something that's very slow to change, which is, I guess, a good and a bad thing. I could see fast changes being damaging, because you talk about when we look at those moments where
fast change, there's two things against fast change as far as public opinion are concerned, and one of them is that it's hard.
Sure.
The other one is that it's scary, and these are two, like, effort and, you know, fear as to whether or not it's going to go well.
Well,
are the two biggest, like, popular.
And it's actually fear I'm talking about. I mean,
right.
I mean, you look at some of the decisions that we've okayed, you know, over the last, you know, decade or so, especially after, you know, 9/11 and things like that, where we've pushed that line of what we're finding acceptable, at least as far as the public's concerned, in public pollings. And it concerns me to think, like, I could see a downside to having something that was so reactive to the moods of the public that it could change policy, you know, in an instance where there are bad things happening.
Like Carlin's idea that if there's a terrorist attack, we shouldn't be allowed to vote on going to war for like 6 months or something.
Yeah, it's definitely along those lines.
I
think that there's, I guess that's my thought, is that if we're going to have that system, I think that we probably should, because at this point I don't feel like the one we have is working.
Yeah.
Then we need to have certain safeguards in place to make sure that we're not
one of my big
just
deals
losing our
that
shit.
I've been sort of facing and I've been sort of kind of screaming at the top of my lungs every time I get a chance is that, like, this time around especially, is that you know, when we vote, we're not supposed to be voting for leaders. We're supposed to be voting for representatives, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, there should be a lot more focus on the issues than there is. The issues rather than voting on, like, some sort of a character. Some sort of
right.
a fictitious figurehead.
Well, you look at who would be the best of any sort of office holder. You'd have someone who would be pretty reasonable, pretty relatively calm, very
someone
intelligent.
Who didn't want the job.
That definitely would weigh into it. I mean, I could even see somebody who wanted the job being okay
to be president is the guy that says, I
want to be
president, like I'm
yeah.
the person to lead the free world.
And I guess I definitely see the downside there. I mean, we want someone with enough drive to maybe maintain their interest in that area, but I do like the idea of someone who's not in it for themselves, I guess, or for their own aggrandizement. Yeah. But then again, I mean, that is a powerful motivator. I think what we would want, though, is we would want someone who would be the most intelligent, the most well-read, the most academic,
and probably boring
person. That sounds like a good president to me. Yeah. And not only does that sound like a good president, that sounds like a good.
It sounds like
every
fucking Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter
was great.
Was a pretty good president.
He was pretty great. He's among my top, honestly, because I feel like he's the one that actually took a measured representation of the times and didn't allow this or that to lead down certain avenues where it got out of control. I mean, yes, there's issues there, of course, but I do think that he's probably one of the best modernish, I guess, examples of what a good president would be.
Right.
And everyone hated him at the time. They hated his fucking ass.
They hated him so much they replaced him with the poor man's John Wayne.
No, right, yeah, you're right. And
without the fact that, you know.
What is that about, like, I mean, I don't know, there's got to be studies on that shit, but what is there about humanity that makes that
romanticizes that sort of a person?
I guess so. I mean, I guess it's romanticized because I guess
it's the same thing. It's the same thing that you see happening now.
Is it entertainment? Is it like what you've seen in movies and films? Is that where
it's because you're voting for I mean, like, whenever we're voting for a president, right? We're voting for a leader, which means that we're voting, or the personality of a leader,
a figurehead.
We're voting for a fictional character,
right?
Okay, so Hillary, she's a work of fiction. We don't know what that fiction is yet because she won't fucking talk about policy in any way, shape, or form. She won't talk about, like, her capacity because she's waiting for Bernie to bail so that she can start pivoting back to the right.
Yeah, which I have no doubt that she will the moment.
I've heard, like, today I heard little bits of conversations about the directions that she's planning on pivoting.
Where's
fucking scary.
Where's also that mindset where, I mean, I think that's kind of common knowledge that she had very different opinions and views at the beginning of this race than she has had throughout, or she has said she's had throughout this. Right. Where is that, like, part of humanity that is able to dismiss that so easily?
That goes, wait.
Didn't she just say, or like a year ago, or the last 10 years, that this is completely opposite of what she believes? Yeah. Where's that part that says that cuts you off and says, I mean, I'm all for change, like, of opinion. I think
like when you can see a track that someone is like, that they have examined their views and they understand the process a little bit better now, and, like,
and they're making
they make a change for the better, and
that's
hey,
not
this is
flopping. That's
evolved.
Decision making. That's fucking
or not
practical. Like, I guess living through.
I guess Obama evolved quite a bit on the gay marriage issue, but which was a euphemism for the fact that he was always pro gay marriage. He just said
you have
he wasn't
to say
to get elected.
And that's an interesting thing. I mean, and I guess it really comes down to those, because you only have those two choices,
right?
And because any alternate choice is going to split the votes that would go towards one person and probably lose the election against if the other party's not doing the same thing. And I guess what kind of catches me is interesting here is we've got, Mitt Romney talking about splitting off from and running independent just to sabotage Donald Trump, basically.
Just to sabotage Donald.
But
that's exactly what he'll do. He'll ensure that Hillary becomes the next president.
Which, granted, I mean, and I don't think he's doing it entirely for selfless reasons, but it's a selfless end no matter what his reasons are, because I think that and don't get me wrong, Hillary's not that much better. Well, she's a lot better, but she's not who I would want to be a president. But... Are we heading towards something different to where it's not just this this two-choice thing, I guess? Is that what you're feeling? Or do you feel like there's something monumentous happening here where, like, we've got enough people who don't usually pay attention to this shit paying attention? We've got enough anger.
There's gonna be a lot of demand for changes within the electoral system.
Well, we've had those people flat out say, we don't care what you vote for.
Right.
I mean,
Howard Dean.
What's that?
Straight up, I have no obligation to the people, period.
Sure. I'm even thinking about the leaders of the DNC and the RNC. Like, they have flat out said, like, we are not beholden to the people. We are a private institution.
Yeah, they are a private institution.
Which is not something that most people knew about going into this election, which is great that everyone knows that now. And yet we pay them, with our tax-paying, dollars. We're the ones that fund them.
Right.
We give them all the authority to do whatever basically they want, apparently, because they've decided that they're not beholden to what popular views are.
Well, in the past, they haven't been. And
right,
now,
just never so outwardly, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, there's that Princeton study that that public opinion has zero correlation with the direction of policy. And that it's all there's 100% correlation between campaign finance and lobbying groups.
Well, have you heard that theory that Dan Carlin's kind of putting forward, where the best way to get the change out there is to have it be, for the wrong reasons, be in the interests of corporations, basically. To, for instance, the Apple thing recently, I think I just listened to something not too long ago on it, where they stood up and said, we're not going to allow you, we're not going to build this password to break into this phone.
We're not going to put a backdoor in.
They do that for customer sales.
Right.
But it serves the wider purpose of the American people.
Right.
If what you want is, some privacy or some respect for individuality.
Right.
So it's an interesting thing.
Super hard to build that into the market, though.
It is. It's so. I mean, I'm just thinking.
I don't know, the market. Why make all the effort to act in a moral fashion when you can simply act surreptitiously and do whatever the fuck you want?
Well, and I mean, I guess that's the thing is it's not a. Is it a moral fashion when you're doing it for profit?
Right.
As opposed to...
So Target bathrooms, the Target bathrooms policy, I mean...
Right.
We have a tendency in this country to think of Target as a thinking entity that says, I'm taking a moral stand.
Right, which is not at all what happened.
They're not taking a moral stand on this. They saw a niche of the market that would benefit them from,
Right, precisely.
From pursuing. And this is going to turn out to be a very lucrative business decision for them.
Right, exactly.
Which is not to say that it's wrong or whatever. It's just that
it's just the motivations are different than what we have in our mind.
So we talk shit about the whole Citizens United, notion of corporations or people or whatever.
Right.
In our subconscious, though, we still sort of anthropomorphize these institutions.
That is a very valid point. I even do it without realizing it, because I know that I think that it's a joke that they're considered people, but then at the same time you get caught up in that.
That's a nice thing that Target's doing.
Yeah, I mean, I usually pull back a few minutes later and that's probably not what they're really doing,
right?
Well, I mean, and it's not like I'm thinking that all these people are
remember that
mad evil people.
Within the legal framework for a corporation that is owned by its share owners, right?
Yep.
There is the obligation to do any and everything that you can, or every decision that you make has to be in the interest of growing the wealth of the share owners, of growing the stock, and that making the company more profitable.
Right, and that goes to your point of
so if you do something on a moral standpoint and it ends up losing you money, you're fucked as a corporation or as the lead decision maker. And I say lead decision maker because it's board of directors.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
If the board of directors makes a decision that ends up negatively affecting the profits, they are legally liable for that loss. So
maybe it's if your goal is changed, maybe it's a useful tool for the moment,
right?
To gain.
There's a monetary motivation to it.
Well, so like if you want
under any and all circumstances, I mean, there's
right. If you want to make, if you're using lobbyists basically to make changes on behalf of the American people, it's going to be a momentary tool where they're going to find a profit in that area for the moment, where you can't really rely on it the next moment.
Yeah.
Basically, so I think that goes to your point of it's hard to build that into the market. The idea that.
And they're creating, and it's more complicated than that because they're also creating a moralistic dynamic to the market itself, right? So, like Target starts off saying we're going to let people use whatever the fuck bathrooms that they want to, and then all of a sudden you've got the Gap or something. They come out and they say, hey, everybody can use whatever bathrooms they want, and people say, duh.
Oh yeah, diminishing returns on that. Yeah, for sure.
Who's next? Sure. Abercrombie and Fitch.
Yeah.
Like it's basically I don't know. This is a really cynical perspective on it, but I mean, it's basically PR.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I certainly don't think that anything that they would do would not be in any way considered. I mean, it would all be considered PR related. Whatever decisions, whatever stances they're going to make on a topic, it's always going to be, as you said, for the benefit of the growth of potential or the growth of actual, monetary reimbursement. So the idea that I guess the idea that Dan Carlin idea of using them as a tool to enact some sort of change, because at the moment the only thing that affects our government is lobbyists. Right. If you could align corporations' desires to make money with the desires of the public to make some radical changes, I could see that, but I guess it's something that you can't rely on.
I say good luck.
Yeah, here's the thing. I think you could do it a couple times. I think you could even do it, a few times across the board. But
the market's always going to be a step ahead, though.
Well, it's a fluctuating pattern. I mean, whatever is going to. It's something you could maybe get one or two really big things done with. I don't know where I was going with that. It was just kind of a thought that I was having when we were talking about. What will it take to make these sorts of changes, especially to these private entities that are the Democratic National Convention and the
is there any way that we can force that institution, Democratic institution? Oh, excuse me.
And it's certainly not written into the laws because their laws are very inclusive only to the members of the party.
But they have laws that favor the two-party system, though.
Right, exactly.
After Ross Perot came in and fucked everything up for Bush Senior,
right?
There was massive reform at that point in time to make it basically impossible for a third-party candidate to run.
At least, at any sort of practical level, that wasn't just a kind of...
Will we see a loosening up on that? Under Clinton, probably not a whole lot. We'll see some half measures, but my suspicion is, and I'm making a prediction, an unqualified prediction here, not an expert, in case you hadn't figured that out by now.
I think that was our standard slogan at the very beginning. Non-expert people becoming
called
slightly
clickbait.
more. Yep.
There's no substance here, but or at least no legitimate substance. But
peer review.
Under a Clinton presidency, I think there will be half measures built in on top of the existing structure under the guise of improving things, but I think in the long run it'll probably end up making everything more complicated without actually fixing the problem.
So here's the thing with do the American people just lose the attention span of being this angry? Because there's a lot of people that are very angry with
well,
this.
and that's right. And I said like a couple of podcasts ago that when this is all over, my prediction for the elections is that there's going to be a lot of people that are really pissed.
Right.
I was really hoping it wasn't going to be me.
Right. Yeah, definitely. But
Bernie's not out yet. I mean,
no,
he's still
not.
He's still got a chance. It's about maybe 1 in 10, but
I mean, here's the thing. Like, no matter what, he's able, whatever he would have been able to do as president. I don't even know what he would have been able to do as president. I don't think he knows what he would have been able to do as president. I think he had some goals to work towards.
I think the point that people were voting for was that at least he was going to try.
Right. So here's the thing with that.
Like, I keep on thinking back to Obama talking about single-payer health care, and then as soon as he went to the negotiating table, he threw that out immediately.
Right.
And started with fucking Mitt Romney's plan.
Right.
And then scaled it back and got it passed. And
well, but here's the thing, though.
It was like you told everybody you were going to try for this, and you didn't.
We've got a lot of people who are buying into, and rightfully so, I think, buying into a lot of Bernie Sanders' message, and really throwing in more support than we've ever seen from a huge demographic that we never see care about this shit.
Which is the demographic that's normally fairly apathetic.
Right. And so you've got these people who are no longer, at least for the moment, apathetic. What happens when, Hillary, who's made all these promises, goes into office and nothing happens at all?
That's a really interesting question, and I've been thinking a lot about that for the past couple of days. And my strategy, first of all, I get really pissed when I hear people talking about just throwing yourself behind Hillary if Bernie doesn't get the nomination.
Right, because
and we frame it in this ridiculous fucking thing born out of Twitter, mind you. By the way, an oversimplification of an argument where we call it the Bernie or bust, guys.
Right.
Okay, so we pretend that there's this movement of people out there that if they can't vote for Bernie, they're gonna sit it off, sit at home and in defiance or something, like some sort of willful thing. But that's not fucking it. There's people out there like me, and I suspect like you, that I registered as a Democrat for the first time,
right?
So that I could caucus for Bernie, because there was finally I had an opportunity to vote in a decent human being into the leadership position,
and not a decent human being on paper for the last year or two.
Right,
a decent human being,
somebody who's been fighting for decent human being principles.
Yes,
for a long fucking time,
really long time.
Hillary, as far as I'm concerned, has done absolutely nothing to earn votes from someone like me.
Right.
Now I'm put into a position at this point, or likely put into the position at the end of the caucuses if Bernie doesn't come out, pull a Hail Mary from the behind at the end and just pull it out of his ass. But if he doesn't, then I'm faced at that point with making the decision: do I vote for the orange-faced rhesus macaque with tiny hands, or do I vote for the real-life Frank Underwood?
Yeah, right. Real-life Frank Underwood, probably, I guess.
I'm probably going to vote for the real-life Frank Underwood, but I'll tell you what, I'll give her that one if I do make that decision at that point in time. But from that point on, she's got to earn every inch of my vote for the future.
Yeah,
and I think there's a lot of people out there, everybody talks about the revolution is coming or whatever, and without being too hippy dippy or whatever, I mean, the revolution has already started.
Well, here's the thing.
Bernie's going to go back to Congress, and he and Elizabeth Warren are going to keep pushing on Hillary to kind of push her towards the left, and the public, I think, is going to do a lot of the same thing. My concern is that Hillary ideologically is going to be more likely to capitulate to the right than she will be to the left.
I mean, I think she's certainly demonstrated that in the past.
Once she cements that presidency, she's going to be a lot more likely to capitulate to the right.
Well, it's certainly
and the things that I'm hearing out of, like, that are kind of getting leaked from her campaign at this point in time are really, like, making me think that she's getting ready to take a hard right.
Yeah,
a lot of really dangerous shit, and especially foreign policy. And
we're gonna have to talk about that because I'm not aware of that. So
it's all rumor and speculation at this point. Well, so I don't really want to talk about it.
But when that happens, that happens,
I'll make some broad speculations in this podcast if you want to about what I think her foreign was going to happen under her foreign policy.
Okay.
I think within a year. I will not be surprised to see some new rebel group.
You know what we should have done? We should have written these in little, like, envelopes, sealed it, and then opened it a year from now.
Well, see, this is the envelope, and we'll just
fair enough.
We'll use it as evidence later on to see if we were right or wrong. I almost said right or left, which is weird. But no. So there's going to be, I think there's going to be a new rebel group that pops up that overthrows Assad.
Right. Okay.
We're going to install a puppet.
That seems sensible. I mean, let's face it. We're already
Syria is going to spiral even further out because the groups that are actually fighting ISIS at this point in time, as soon as we start deposing Assad, they're going to turn. And the whole thing's going to fall apart.
That seems sensible. What are you? Well, I guess that's. I feel like those are probably going to be your focuses. One of the things that I've heard, like that, is that she's on the verge of taking a very regressive stance on the Iran treaty. Right.
She's really interested in backpedaling that a lot,
which is unfortunate.
Yeah, that's more than unfortunate. That's devastating. We will not win a war with Iran.
I think that
we won't.
We're not winning any wars at this point.
I agree, but we've got a whole bunch of them going on.
We do, and that's the thing.
And if we throw in a legitimate military power with its own resources, if we pick a fight with them, we are not going to win. It's going to be devastating losses. It's going to be,
interesting.
It's going to be Vietnam times 5, times 10.
And you certainly, we don't know how to deal with Vietnam times 1.
No, we didn't. That's why we fucking pulled out.
Well, you look at the issues with Iraq and Afghanistan and the kind of attrition war there. That's Vietnam times 0.05, and we were already freaking out about it.
Yeah.
And we were already making comparisons to Vietnam.
Yeah.
I don't think we could handle
legitimate comparisons. The loss of life is a little bit more measured on our end.
Sure.
But the loss of life in Iraq and Syria is
astronomically. Yeah. It's depressing. I don't even know if we've talked about this, but I watched this I can't remember exactly what it was. Some sort of report on this kid that fucking grew up there, and basically just talking about how terrified they are of, like, clear skies, how that means bombs.
Oh yeah, the kid in Yemen.
Yep.
They were,
and that's just
clear skies. Yeah, I remember that.
Like,
I think we talked about that one.
Maybe I was wondering if we did. Just even the concept of that is so fucking disturbing to me, and it brings to mind. And granted, we're not firebombing hundreds of thousands of people like we were in World War II, but damn if that doesn't make you understand that precision bombing is not precision as much as we would like it to
and we're
be.
so disconnected from it too.
Yep.
There's a lot of frustration at the idea of what's happening. I mean, we hear stories about what's happening over there, but like Vietnam was very different because you had a free press at that point in time.
Right.
That was actually embedded, and they were taking photographs or whatever.
That
and,
were
like,
free.
yeah, but like with Bush's whole deal about you can't photograph caskets as they come back from, like, you can't even photograph the caskets.
Yeah,
you can't photograph anything that insinuates that any Americans have died. You can't.
It's just baffling. I mean, I mean, I'm not even. Obviously, on our end, it's very. It's been a very, in fact, probably excessively perturbing thing, because to me, like, I try to look at that and I see, like, how upset we got when a couple thousand people died on American soil from ostensibly civilians that were ostensibly killed with a bomb of an airplane or whatever.
Right.
And then you look at the amount of civilian casualties we cause, like, with these indiscriminate bombing campaigns. And I mean, they're not completely indiscriminate. I know that they are targeted, but the level of
signature strikes,
right? The I guess the breakwater level, that thing that says that's too much collateral damage, is very questionable, if there at all.
Well, I mean, it's not in our face.
Right.
That's been a tremendous benefit to those that are conducting the campaign.
Right.
You know, is that we're shielded from it. Like, we don't see it. Drones are the factory farming of war.
That's a fair. I mean, fucking, it's the child.
We're not
fucking
allowed
labor.
to see that. We're not allowed to see the horrible shit that's going on there, and we can only react to it in the abstract. And
I mean, it's fucking, like, it's your cheap ass clothes that you buy too. It's the fucking kids that are working in sweatshops to build you shit you don't see, and you get a fucking little news report every once in a while.
What the fuck am I gonna?
And you get upset about that news report, but then you move on from it. I mean, it's the same story. We get these individualized tastes of just dissatisfaction at something, but then
we get anecdote,
right?
But it's not on our television every night.
And I mean, can you imagine, like, fucking living through that shit? I mean, what damage that would cause you, and I mean, what damage it caused us one day.
What damage does it cause to society as a whole?
Right.
I mean,
so I guess my thoughts are,
because you got to think that reshapes. It doesn't reshape the consciousness of individuals alone.
Right. It
reshapes the consciousness
society.
of society.
Yeah. I mean, you can even look at art, well, not just art, but the culture of Japan after, like, the fire bombings and after the first nuclear strikes. I mean, it rapidly shifted. There's some definite signifiers in there that something happened, and what is it doing to us, and what is it doing to them, to be both the bombers and then also the people that are being bombed. I mean, there's damage to human society, not just a country at large. And so I guess my thoughts are, if Hillary's gonna fucking earn that thing, she's gonna need to avoid some of this stuff. She needs to look towards the things that are...
She's gonna have to listen to the left. I mean, like, getting rid of an incumbent president during the midterms, that is, by the way, assuming that she can win.
Right.
I mean, like, if she does pivot hard right, she's going to lose.
You've got a good point.
If she abandons,
she would lose a lot of the support.
Progressive millennials, she is going to tank. And because it's interesting, we were talking last week, I think, about about how I thought that Hillary was going to sweep the election or whatever. I was pretty confident at that point in time. And little whispers in the meantime have convinced me that there's a possibility she might be getting ready to position herself in such a way that's going to abandon the support that she does have.
Yeah, I mean, you always looked at those statistics that showed
Is she that dumb? I don't know. She is relying on sort of like campaign consultants.
Is it all about her, though? Is it all about her own decisions? And I mean, that's the thing, is that I don't think it is.
I think more than...
Well, when I say that, I mean there are influences going on around her that are what would normally be considered responsible for putting you in presidency, but at this point in time, we're in a very unusual situation where I think we've got a very anti-establishment thing going on. We've got a very like counter to whatever has been going on for the last 30, 40 years. And you got a lot of frustrated people. Normally, like these sorts of like campaign finances and things like that would be what would put you into the presidency. This time, it's kind of costing you a little bit of the support that you would normally
Hillary's
be getting.
going to have the burden of being one of the first presidents to to take office in the face of a really well-educated populace.
Certainly more educated. The only thing I want is
politically literate and politically engaged. Because I mean, let's be honest. For the most part, you elect a president, you sit back and you watch what happens, right? So that's the way it's been throughout my life, and certainly throughout millennials' lives. And I think that's why, you've got large portions of the population that are pretty disgusted or whatever with the way that things are turning out, and. So the public is going to try to not let her get away with that.
I think as long as we can keep
focus
on the issue, I think as long as we can maintain that level of...
we're also assuming perfect transparency as well when we talk about these sort of arguments or whatever, which is, there's so much of what happens in Congress and what happens in the White House that we don't know about until it's too fucking late.
Right.
Look at the Trans-Pacific Partnership. it was already voted to fast track before anybody even knew anything about it. Yeah.
That's
Which, by the way, there's another prediction for you. She's going to pivot back on TPP. She's going to see the light.
Well, I already knew she would.
She's going to see the light. She started off pretty positive on it, and then Bernie forced her to the left.
Yeah, he definitely
And she said that, she was like, well, I'm reconsidering, blah, blah, blah. And then now she's going to pivot back as soon as he's out. So that
was actually one of the ones that I, of all the ones that I know she's going to pivot back towards, that was one that I just absolutely had no questions about. That one felt one of the most disingenuous things that she had ever said.
Especially if you've heard the speeches that she was giving in Asia about, how wonderful the Trans-Pacific Partnership is.
Right. There were no questions there.
Every bit as much of a need politically to gain the upper hand within the Pacific marketplace over China as Obama did. And that's where her $2 billion of campaign finances is coming from. Mostly is that the industry is, they want her to loosen banking regulations, and they want her to loosen trade regulations. And those are going to be the two payoffs that they really get out of Hillary Clinton.
Sure.
And whatever else she does during all that, she's not going to act aggressively on climate change. For sure. She will do half measures of half measures as far as she possibly can. Right. Her foreign policy.
That's going to be an interesting thing when that. I don't even know if I want to live through it. It's going to be a fucking mess. But when that no longer can be an issue that is just patently ignored and just kind of thrown lip service to, when there is an issue so fucking there in front of your face,
when Florida starts sinking,
right, it's going to be an interesting time to live through. It's already an interesting time to live through. I thought that this
Chinese proverb, may you live in interesting, or that Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times.
Exactly. Well, and I thought my lifespan was going to be mostly boring until the last few years. As far as global events, big changes, especially maybe even just in our hemisphere and our government. I think that we do live in a really surprisingly interesting time. I don't think most people saw this coming.
Mostly interesting in a good way.
I think it can go some. I think it's got the potential to go somewhere. I will say, one of the cool things about this situation, with the primaries and things like that, you've got both Republicans and Democrats, both sides of like the divide, like even the furthest left and furthest right, really upset over the choices that these two parties have made. It's kind of interesting to see. Usually, it's just one or the other that has these sorts of questions. I think what was it? I can't remember when the last time they had a contested convention, but
what was like 1960s, I think.
It's something like that, 60s or 70s. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But it's an interesting thing to see it on both sides, where you've got some really, really shady behavior from both sides. You've got. And I'm upset about both. Like, I don't want Donald Trump to be president, but I do think that he should be allowed to be voted for, I guess.
Yeah. If he wins the vote, and it's the same with Hillary.
It's depressing as fuck, but
like, you know, you can say what you want about like voter suppression and all that sort of stuff, and there's valid points to that.
There's been a lot of.
It's a perfect indication that we need to revisit the processes that we do for selecting our party leaders or whatever. But the fact of the matter at this point is that if she wins, it's going to be probably because she has more votes. So, I mean, there's not really. I can't get too like furious about that.
It's going to be
my favorite thing, by the way, out of this whole like election snafu is sort of the exposure of the fraud or the logical fallacy that is the religious right.
Sure.
Because they're all fucking like all the preachers' sons and all that. They're all jumping ship or jumping on board with Trump. Knowing full well that he's not a religious individual, and he can pay lip service to it exactly the same way they pay lip service.
Yeah, his is just more like suddenly and more easily to see through, but it doesn't matter.
And it's just like, it's something I've been thinking about for a really long time. Again, unqualified, but like religiosity within the right-wing party is like one of two banners of religion and of regressive economic and social policy, right? So, like, and those two banners serve as like a thin shroud over like the underlying
what's really
racism and like strong father complex.
Now,
that really drives.
To be fair, I'm not saying that all Republicans fall into that category, but I do think that
I think that all Republicans definitely fall underneath the strong father sort of ideology.
Interesting.
Which is like electing a powerful, almost one might say dictatorial leader, my way or the highway type of leadership.
But yeah, the idea. Well, it's funny because it is such a contradiction of terms. Because while they do that, they also don't want heavy like government. It's almost like they want a heavy individual control, rather than a heavy institution control.
Right, and it's like the same thing that goes into like the belief in a single all-powerful deity, and so they are effectively electing a God complex, right? So and it's the same thing, and we've kind of started talking about it a little bit with like Ronald Reagan as the sort of like John Wayne type figure, the strong leader, you know, and you know, the idea that your leader is going to be a protector.
Now there are non-religious Republicans. I know I've met one or two.
Yeah, but I guarantee if you look into their philosophical ideas and their notions,
it falls under
it's going to fall under exactly that same sort of category, which is why you've seen that people are, you know, almost all too happy to throw away that sort of guise of religiosity and you know, like, I guess family values, although I think family values is like more malicious, I think, than religiosity, right? Because religiosity, at least it's honest.
Sure.
Like, you know, I guess about what it is. but family values is very much it goes that extra little level, while also like pretending to be, you know, some sort of a secular value. Which I think is really disturbing.
Well, I mean, this whole thing with family values is not so much that it's just even your family, it's your perception of other people's families, it's your assumption that other people should operate under those same family values. I mean, if it were just your own household, and to be fair, maybe that's even wrong, because there's individuals in that household who may hold different beliefs. But if the whole household was okay with those values,
right,
go for it. But if you're judging other people on your values, that seems questionable to me. I don't know. Maybe that's me judging them with my values, that they shouldn't be judging people with their values. So,
with your goddamn secular values. With that, you want to end it?
Yeah, let's wrap that up. So thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us for this Pointless Podcast Volume 2.
Yeah.
Or 10, depending on how you see it.
We hope you got something out of it, and if you didn't, you probably didn't watch it.
Come back next time. I don't know why he's using that, because it doesn't work.
It does not work.
But come back, because we're going to talk about some fun stuff, like wrongful convictions and false confessions. So
fuck the police.
Those are fun things to talk about.
Hey.
I confessed.